Picture this for a second. It's 3 a.m.
Oh, the absolute worst time to be awake.
Right. You're wide awake, just staring at the ceiling. And then suddenly the phone on your nightstand buzzes.
And you just know it's bad news.
Exactly. It lights up the dark room, and it's another crisis at your business. Just another fire to put out.
Right.
And of course, because of how things are set up, it's a problem that apparently only you can solve.
Yeah, that is a painfully relatable scenario for, well, pretty much anyone who has started a business.
Because, you start this whole journey to gain freedom, right? To be your own boss and, control your destiny. But somewhere along the way, you realize you didn't actually build a business. You built a prison.
And the worst part is, you are the warden, the guard, and the inmate all at the same exact time.
Which is such a dark realization. And that dynamic, that exact trap, is what we are dissecting in today's deep dive. We're pulling from some really incredible excerpts from a guide called The System Builder, From Business Operator to True Owner.
It's a fantastic source text.
It really is. And our mission today is straightforward, but honestly massive. We want to uncover how you can transform from being your business's most exhausted, overworked employee into its actual true owner.
Yeah, and I want to speak directly to you, the listener, for a second here, because whether you're an overwhelmed entrepreneur currently running a small team or, a freelancer trying to scale, or even if you're just someone fascinated by the mechanics of how truly successful systems operate.
Because it is fascinating.
It really is. The goal today is to show you how to build a machine that thrives and grows whether you are actively sitting in the room or, sitting on a beach taking a 3-week vacation.
Which sounds like an absolute dream for most founders. But to understand how to build that machine, we kind of have to look at why we end up staring at that ceiling at 3 a.m. in the first place. The source text introduces this concept called the Entrepreneurial Myth.
Right, the E-myth idea.
Yeah, and it illustrates it with the story of a woman named Sarah. So Sarah runs this boutique marketing agency. And if you look at her on LinkedIn, she looks like a massive success.
Oh, I'm sure she's got the awards, the posts.
Oh, totally. She boasts 6-figure revenue, awards on the wall, these really high-profile clients. But her day-to-day reality is entirely different. She works like 70 hours a week. She hasn't taken a real vacation in 3 years.
Wow, 3 years.
Yeah, and her kids barely recognize her without a laptop fused to her hands. She's just totally paralyzed by this fundamental belief that nobody can do the work quite like she does.
Which is such a trap. And, her situation is actually the rule, not the exception. The text highlights a statistic that I think really puts Sarah's reality into perspective. It says over 80% of small business owners actually work more hours than they did in their corporate jobs.
Wait, 80%?
80%. They leave the corporate grind, seeking freedom, only to work longer hours for way less security.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I imagine that happens because they conflate, doing the technical work with actually running a business that delivers that technical work.
Yes, exactly.
Like the baker who loves baking decides to open a bakery. Or the graphic designer who loves making logos starts an agency. But literally overnight, they are forced to become the accountant, the salesperson, the manager, the janitor.
All hats. They wear all the hats.
Right. They haven't built a business beyond themselves. They've just given themselves 10 different job titles.
And that is the absolute essence of the entrepreneurial myth. The core transformation that the text demands is shifting your perspective entirely. Your business must be a system, not a personality.
Right.
I know every business book on the planet uses the Ray Kroc and McDonald's example, and it can feel, honestly, like a bit of a cliche at this point.
You've all heard it.
But the specific mechanic the author highlights here is really crucial. McDonald's doesn't succeed because they scour the earth for culinary geniuses.
Definitely not.
No, they succeed because they built a system so refined, so totally foolproof, that they can hire a 16-year-old on their very first day of work to produce the exact same burger in Tokyo as they do in Chicago.
Because the system dictates the outcome, not the raw talent of the employee. Ray Kroc wasn't actually in the burger business. He was in the system building business. The burger was just the output of the machine.
Perfectly said.
It makes me think of an analogy like the difference between a jazz solo and a symphony.
Oh, I like that.
If your business is a jazz solo, it's totally dependent on your unique, improvised genius. If you stop playing, the music just completely stops. But a real business needs to be a symphony. The sheet music has to be documented, the parts orchestrated, and the piece has to remain perfectly playable even if the original composer just leaves the building.
That's a brilliant way to put it. A symphony relies on the score, not just the soloist. But, before you can actually write that score, you have to confront the internal psychology that keeps you trapped in that jazz solo mode.
Because it's hard to let go?
Extremely hard. The text argues that the primary hurdle isn't even logistical at first. It's psychological. The author says there are basically 3 internal personalities constantly fighting for dominance inside you.
Let me guess.
You've got the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur.
Oh, I know those roles really well. The technician is the doer, right? That's the part of you focused entirely on the present moment, just deeply engaged in the craft.
Yes, the one whose motto is, if you want it done right, do it yourself.
Which is such a dangerous motto. And then you have the manager. The manager is focused on the past. They create order out of chaos, track the metrics, and just make sure things are repeatable.
Right, they clean up the messes.
Exactly. And finally, you have the entrepreneur, who is the visionary. They are focused purely on the future, looking over the horizon and asking, where are we going next?
And the real danger here is that the balance of these 3 is usually completely inverted.
How so?
Well, for most overworked founders, the technician is eating up like 70 to 80% of their time, because retreating to technician work is comfortable.
Because doing the actual labor feels tangibly productive.
Exactly. You check a box.
But that leaves maybe 20% for the manager to organize the mess, and the entrepreneur, the visionary who actually scales the business, is starved. They're surviving on maybe 10% of your energy.
Wow.
So the text sets a clear target to flip this. You want to reach a state where 50% of your time is the entrepreneur, 40% is the manager, and only 10%, and eventually 0% is the technician.
Okay, I have to jump in here because I struggle with this part.
Go for it.
If I'm a graphic designer or a hairstylist or a baker, I likely started my business because I genuinely truly want to design or cut hair or bake.
Right, you love the craft.
Exactly. I don't necessarily want to spend half my week managing spreadsheets and planning 5-year strategies. So if someone just flat out loves the technical work, is this model telling them they're doing it wrong? This raises an important question, and it's a very fair point. And honestly, the text validates that desire completely. There is absolutely no moral failing in wanting to just do the work.
That's a relief to hear.
But, however, the author demands that you be honest about the structure you're creating. If you just want to do the technical work, that is self-employment.
You just bought yourself a job.
Precisely. You've created a job for yourself. A real business, at least by definition in this context, is a commercial, profit-generating enterprise that operates independently of its owner. So you simply have to decide which of those 2 things you actually want.
Man, that distinction changes everything, because if you do choose the enterprise route, the immediate question is how to practically shift your time away from the technician without the whole thing collapsing.
Which is the terrifying part.
Right. The source points to creating an operations manual to allow for delegation, but creating a manual usually implies sitting down for weeks to write standard operating procedures, which literally nobody has time for.
It creates a brutal paradox. You can't document your processes because you're too busy doing the work. But you're too busy doing the work because nobody else has a manual to follow. So you remain the single point of failure.
So how do we break the loop?
The solution the author provides here is remarkably pragmatic. It's called the document while you do method. Do not schedule a mythical Friday afternoon to write a manual, because let's be real, that Friday is never going to come.
It never does. Something always comes up.
Exactly. Instead, capture the process while you are actively executing it.
Oh, I see. So if I am, say, reviewing a new client brief, instead of just doing it silently at my desk, I hit record on a screen capture tool and narrate my thought process.
Yes, exactly that.
So I might say, first, I check the budget against our minimums. Then I review the timeline to ensure we have a 4-week buffer. You just capture the reality of your workflow in real time.
Precisely. You aren't adding a new massive task to your day. You're just modifying how you perform an existing task. There's this brilliant example in the text of an agency owner who used this method to document his client onboarding.
How did that go?
Well, he assumed it was a sleek, simple process, but once he actually narrated it and got it on paper, he realized it was a bloated, repetitive 17-step monster.
Oh, wow. 17 steps just for onboarding.
Yeah, but seeing it documented allowed him to immediately cut it down to 9 steps. The mere act of observation forced him to optimize it. And furthermore, a business with a documented operations manual transcends being just a service provider. It becomes a sellable asset.
That's huge, though I can already hear the creatives in the audience pushing back on this.
Oh, they always do.
A really common refrain is, But my work is creative. Every project is a blank canvas. Every client needs something bespoke. You can't systematize art.
And they're right, you can't systematize the art itself,
Yeah.
but you absolutely must systematize the delivery of the art. The text uses a wedding photographer to illustrate this beautifully.
Okay, tell me about the photographer.
So the creative output, the actual photographs, the lighting, capturing the unique emotion of the couple, that is distinct every single time. But the creative process, that should be identical.
Oh, I get it. The consultation, the pre-wedding questionnaire, the shot list, the editing timeline, the gallery delivery, all of that is logistics. It's not art.
Right. You rigidly systematize the logistical process precisely so you have the mental bandwidth to be truly creative when you're actually behind the camera.
That makes total sense. But okay, once that ink is dry on the operations manual or, the screen recordings are filed away in a folder, you're faced with a really dangerous temptation. Hiring someone immediately to take the wheel.
Oh, yes. And the text issues a massive warning here, noting that this is the exact moment most founders completely destabilize their companies.
Because they fall into what the author calls the hiring trap.
Exactly. Most entrepreneurs only hire when they are actively drowning in work. They're desperate. So they bring someone in hoping for a superhero to magically swoop down, read their mind, and just fix all the operational chaos.
Which usually results in a complete disaster, because if they don't have a structured manual to follow, a competent hire is just going to invent their own process. And then suddenly, your business has two completely different ways of doing everything, creating massive inconsistency for the client, and honestly, even more messes for the owner to clean up later. Here's where it gets really interesting, because it's like trying to hire a chauffeur to drive your car when you haven't actually finished building the car yet.
That's a perfect analogy.
You just hand them a steering wheel and say, "Take me to the airport."
And that chauffeur is either going to quit or they're going to build a completely different vehicle out of whatever parts they can find. The new mandate from the text is hire for the system, not for the rescue.
Build the car first.
Exactly. You build the car first, you document the role, and then you hire someone specifically to execute that proven playbook. And when it comes to finding that person, the author advocates for a hire, slow, fire fast approach.
Meaning prioritizing attitude over a stacked resume.
Exactly. Prioritizing attitude and culture fit far above specific technical experience.
Because, since you have the manual, you can teach the mechanical skills. You just need someone with the right disposition to actually follow it.
Right. You can use your manual to train the mechanics of your specific software, but you cannot train humility or work ethic. You are looking for people who are humble enough to follow your system without ego, hungry enough to deliver excellence, and smart enough to flag when a process is actually broken.
And the text suggests never starting with a full-time offer, right?
Correct. Give them a paid, contained test project first. Observe how they actually operate within your system before you integrate them fully into your team.
Okay, so assuming you navigate that successfully, the system is documented, the team is hired, and they are now driving the car. They are doing the work inside the business. The natural question for the founder is, well, what am I supposed to be doing now?
You elevate your role. You step back and work on the business rather than in it.
The classic distinction.
It is, but it's so misunderstood. Working in the business is serving clients, answering support tickets, grinding through the daily deliverables. Working on the business is high-level strategy, refining those operational systems and building the engine that generates future revenue.
Because if you never make that transition, you end up trapped in the freelancer's nightmare. The feast or famine cycle.
Oh, the feast or famine cycle is brutal.
It really is. You get a massive influx of client work, so you put your head down and completely stop marketing to focus on fulfillment. Then, 2 months later, the project ends, you look up, and your pipeline is just totally empty.
And then panic sets in.
Exactly. Panic sets in, you hustle frantically to network and sign a new client, and the brutal cycle just resets.
It is an exhausting way to live. And it happens because revenue generation is tied entirely to the owner's manual effort. So the text proposes replacing that manual hustle with a business development system.
And this isn't just a vague idea of, doing more marketing.
No, not at all. It requires 5 distinct, interlocking components to function as a unified machine.
Okay, let's break those down. Because understanding how they connect seems to be the key to breaking that feast or famine loop.
Sure. So the first gear in the machine is consistent lead generation. This means moving away from random networking events and building an automated engine like, say, an optimized SEO funnel or a standardized referral program, or a targeted weekly newsletter. Something that brings prospects to your door predictably.
But lead generation alone isn't enough.
No, which leads to the second component, lead nurturing.
Because the vast majority of people who discover your business today are definitely not ready to pull out their credit card today.
Exactly.
If you only focus on immediate buyers, you lose, what, 90% of your potential market?
Usually 90%.
Okay.
Precisely. So nurturing involves automated email sequences or consistent content that builds trust in the background, just keeping you top of mind until they actually are ready to buy.
Got it. And when they are ready.
Then they enter the third component, a documented sales process. And this isn't just winging it on a Zoom call and hoping for the best.
No jazz solos on the sales call.
Exactly. No jazz solos. It is a clear step-by-step pathway, complete with standardized qualifying questions and proposal templates, moving them from initial interest to a signed contract.
And the moment that contract is signed, the fourth component kicks in, the conversion and onboarding system. This basically guarantees that every single client, regardless of which team member handles their account, receives the exact same premium, frictionless experience.
Which naturally feeds right into the fifth and final component, the retention and referral system.
Because keeping clients is cheaper than finding new ones.
Exponentially cheaper. It is so much more expensive to acquire a new client. You need automated check-ins, milestone celebrations, and systematic review requests to turn satisfied clients into your absolute best marketers. These 5 components act like gears in a watch.
If one breaks, the whole revenue engine stalls.
Exactly.
Now, the source text gives a pretty daunting action item to actually build this engine. The author insists that founders must block out a minimum of 3 hours, ideally a full day, every single week dedicated solely to working on these systems. No billable client work allowed.
I know. People always freak out at that part.
Well, honestly, for a founder who is barely keeping their head above water, sacrificing 20% of their billable week seems financially catastrophic.
What's fascinating here is that it feels catastrophic because they are evaluating the cost through the lens of a technician, not an entrepreneur.
Okay, say more about that.
The author reframes this brilliantly. You are not losing billable time. You are trading time for future capacity. Imagine spending 3 hours today documenting your lead nurturing sequence. Yes, you lose 3 hours of client work today.
Right.
But if that automated sequence saves you 2 hours of manual follow-up every single week going forward, you just bought back over 100 hours of your life this year. It is the ultimate form of leverage.
The ROI isn't measured in immediate dollars. It's measured in compound time.
Exactly.
So to make this actionable, the text lays out a very specific 90-day action plan. Let's dig into how a listener can actually execute this phase by phase, because the sequencing here seems vital.
It is very structured. The first phase, weeks 1 and 2, is the reality check, the time audit. You cannot fix a system until you know where the leaks actually are. The text suggests auditing your time in 15-minute increments.
Which sounds tedious, but a practical way to do this is color-coding your calendar. Like red for technician tasks, blue for manager tasks, and green for entrepreneur tasks. By the end of week 2, you'll likely see a total sea of red.
Oh, it will be so red.
And from there, you list every single repetitive task you perform.
Which brings us directly to phase 2, weeks 3 and 4. And this is key. You do not try to document the entire business at once because you will just get overwhelmed and quit.
Right. Keep it small.
You pick just your top 3 most frequent time-consuming tasks. You apply that document while you do method recording your screen or dictating the steps to get those 3 specific processes out of your head and onto paper.
And getting just 3 major tasks documented creates a massive psychological win. It proves the concept actually works. Then, in phase 3, weeks 5 through 8, the focus shifts to tackling that feast or famine cycle by systematizing just one lead generation channel.
This is critical. You aren't building the entire 5-part business development system in a month. You are just building the front door.
For example?
Say you're a consultant relying on random LinkedIn direct messages. You spend these 4 weeks transitioning to a standardized weekly webinar that automatically filters qualified leads directly into your calendar. You build one predictable way to acquire clients.
Finally, phase 4, weeks 9 through 12. This is where you actually reclaim your time. This is when you make your first strategic hire.
Yes.
You bring someone in, perhaps just for 5 hours a week initially, and you hand them the manual for those 3 tasks you documented back in week 3. You oversee their integration into your newly built system.
It is a methodical, step-by-step ladder,
Yeah.
completely out of the operational weeds. You prove the documentation works, you stabilize the revenue flow, and then you replace yourself in the most time-consuming areas.
It is a totally brilliant blueprint. But, as we wrap up this deep dive, we've talked extensively about the mechanics, the manuals, the hiring frameworks, the lead generation engines. What is the underlying current the listener really needs to take away from this?
If we pull back and look at the bigger picture, the final hurdle isn't logistical at all, it's ego.
Wow, okay.
We have spent this time outlining how to gain your financial freedom and reclaim your schedule. But this raises a profound question. What if the ultimate bottleneck in your business isn't a lack of time or poor systems, but your own need to be indispensable?
That hits hard. You mean like the identity tied to being the hero?
Exactly. If your entire self-worth is wrapped up in being the savior who puts out all the fires at 3 a.m., then succeeding in business actually requires you to grieve the loss of being needed.
That is deep.
When you build a machine that works perfectly without you, you are no longer the hero of the daily grind. So the ultimate question you must ponder is this. Are you truly ready to build a system that makes you irrelevant to the day-to-day operations? Or are you secretly addicted to the chaos? Because the chaos proves how important you are.
That completely changes the paradigm. Are you building a business or are you just feeding your ego? That is a thought that will definitely linger. So the next time it is 3:00 a.m., you are staring at that ceiling and your phone buzzes, remember that you hold the keys. You built the prison, which means you have the power to unlock the cell. Document the process. Build the car before you hire the chauffeur. Stop playing the jazz solo and write the symphony. Take that first step today to build the system, build the business, and finally build your freedom. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.